Have you ever heard of the Spirits book? What is the content of this book? What does it unveil for us? Should we be afraid and avoid it? Let's talk a little about this intriguing book. I appreciate your company and kindly ask that you subscribe and hit the like button at the end of the video if you enjoyed it, as this is how you can support the channel. Thank you very much. Let's start from the beginning. How did the Spirits book come about? In the mid-19th century, in Europe, a peculiar and intriguing phenomenon was spreading and was the subject of conversation everywhere. Groups of people gathered and witnessed inexplicable phenomena where objects moved, were knocked down, or thrown away, apparently without the participation of any known force. The supernatural arouses people's curiosity, and that was initially all that caused such phenomena, curiosity and fascination with the fantastic. However, in France, a renowned professor, skeptical and with a scientific vision, was invited by a friend to participate and attend one of these meetings. Professor Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail, the author of textbooks on arithmetic, geometry, grammar, and others, born under the Catholic religion and educated in a Protestant country, refused the friend's invitation several times until he was convinced. With a scientific and research intention, he went to one of those meetings. A group of people would gather around any table and place their hands on it. The table would start to move, levitate, and sometimes be thrown a considerable distance. And so, we witness what became known as the phenomenon of table turning. These were truly spectacular phenomena, now also witnessed by Professor Rivail. He began to study and eliminate possibilities. First, as a great enthusiast of magnetism, which was beginning to be known and studied, the professor sought some connection between those phenomena and magnetic effects, forces that would make objects move seemingly on their own. But this was discarded after several experiments. He also took precautions and took all possible care not to be deceived by fraud. He looked for illusory tricks involving the participants, but the phenomena were genuine, and the movements of inanimate objects did not have the effective participation of any known force. What could be the explanation? It was necessary for someone to go beyond curiosity and fascination, and that was the role of Professor Rivail. His perception began to go beyond and he considered something different from magnetism to move those objects. He realized that some movements did not seem random but were endowed with synchrony. The movements seemed to respond to some commands, and this led the professor to suppose that some intelligence was responsible for those phenomena. That's where a simple communication system was created. Various questions would be asked, and one knock would mean an affirmative answer, while two knocks would mean a negative answer. The communication system was successful, and consequently, there came the certainty that an intelligence invisible to our eyes answered the questions and moved the tables and other objects. The professor's investigative inquiry continues, and as it would be natural, the method of answering with knocks for yes or no had to be improved. An artifice was created that used all the letters of the alphabet and could be pointed to one by one to form words, similar to what is still known today as a teenage game that arouses curiosity and fear. Participants place their hands on a wooden arrow, ask questions, and without anyone exerting force, the arrow moves to the letters drawn on the board, forming words. This game should be avoided as well as all communication with spirits when the intent is mere curiosity or triviality, without a useful and serious purpose. But with Professor Rivail, the research was extremely serious. With the communication system improved, more in-depth questions and more complete answers became possible. Who are you? We are spirits. Spirits of humans. Yes. Have you lived here on earth? Yes, many times. It is a great and important step further in communications between the incarnate and the disincarnate. The professor refines the methods of communication, now with the help of the spirits. He learned that objects were moved by spirits through some people who had physical predispositions that allowed such phenomena. These people were the intermediaries of communications. From something similar to the spiritual board game, the idea was followed to attach a pencil to a basket or a clipboard, which when touched by that person with the predisposition to be an intermediary, wrote directly on paper the messages from the spirits. More and more complete and complex answers could be obtained. Finally, any object proved unnecessary in the process. It was enough for the intermediaries to hold a simple pencil in their hands for the spirits to act and successfully transmit their messages. With these observations, Professor Ryvale coined the term medium to refer to those people who had the predisposition to mediate communications between the two planes. Medium, from Latin, which means exactly intermediary. With the improvement of communications, the professor dedicated himself to delve into the knowledge that could be acquired. He realized that messages could be received from a huge variety of spirits, each with its individualities and levels of evolution, knowledge, wisdom, and love. Spirits are ourselves when we are no longer incarnated, detached from the physical body we know. When we die or disincarnate, a term that refers to the detachment between spirit and physical body, as only the body dies, there is no abrupt transformation, the spirits remain the same. That is why the received communications must be carefully analyzed and distinguished. With time and dedication, the professor developed artifices to categorize the received messages. His greatest work was to identify messages transmitted by superior spirits and use their answers and teachings, which he began to catalogue and codify because they were grand philosophical teachings. Messages were sent to Professor Ryvale from other countries in Europe and other continents, including the United States. Such messages were compared. The universality of the teachings is one of the aspects used to distinguish messages originating from totally different places but with the same content of information. The form and content of the messages were also observed. A message containing any word denoting a degree of pride or selfishness, which could cause disagreements, would be discarded. With all this study and care, Professor Ryvale formulated hundreds of questions addressed to the spirits. Various answers were obtained, and after using those criteria of universality, content, and form, he catalogued answers to various subjects. Questions that many of us would always like to know, such as: who is God? Is the universal space infinite or limited? How did God create the universe? When did the earth begin to be populated? Did the human species begin with a single man? Are all the globes circulating in space inhabited? Is the creation of spirits permanent, or did it only occur at the origin of time? Do spirits have an end? Are there demons, in the sense given to this word? Is the separation of the soul and body painful? Do spirits have genders? Do spirits see God? What should be understood by a guardian angel? What is the most perfect type that God offered to man to serve as a guide and model? Are all men equal before God? Does man have free will for his actions? Answers and comments from over 1,000 questions make up the Spirit's book. Released in 1857, this is the first of the 5 books codified by Allan Kardec, and that form the basis of the teachings of the spirits, giving shape to the Spiritist doctrine or Spiritism. You might be wondering, who is Allan Kardec, who we see on the cover of the Spirit's book? This is the pseudonym chosen by Professor Ryvale so that his already well-known name and previous works would not interfere with anything in this new doctrine that was emerging, as it is a doctrine of the spirits, and not of the professor. The superior spirits who worked on this extraordinary doctrine revealed that Allan Kardec was one of the previous incarnations of the beloved Professor Rivail, so he chose this name. The doctrine of the spirits deserves to be known and studied, and it begins with the Spirit's book. Read, study, and add knowledge and love to your lives. Stay tuned for many other videos that will study this wonderful doctrine. Thank you for staying until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button to help spread good words and positive energy. I hope to see you in the next video, God willing.